Trump is not draining the swamp. He is filling the swamp.
Trump chose the billionaires who gave him lots and lots of money because at the end of the day, that is all Trump cares about.
Maybe invest in public education if you want more talent in America.
If I wanted to keep speaking out of ignorance, I would have stayed an evangelical.
But this is how propaganda works, April. It's a little bit of truth tied to a lot of lies that create a brand new story. In 2025, here's a New Year's resolution for all of you out there. Take these people and what they say, crumple up their little thoughts, and throw them in the trash and move on with your life. All right, we're live. First episode. Wow, I just turned that on like a switch, didn't I? I was like,
wow,
you ready?
That was
Whoa,
impressive.
We're live. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What is that? Is it Pavlov's dog where like the chime and like he would play a chime and every time he played the chime, the dog would start salivating?
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel like that whenever I hit record. Where I'm like, record. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm on the air. Here I am.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Well, I will say Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the first recap of the year, which is super exciting. We're covering a lot of things because every week a lot of things happened. This week, President Jimmy Carter passed away. MAGA had a huge civil war. We'll talk about that. And we're currently in the middle of unpacking and discovering more details about a terrorist attack that happened this week, tragically, on the first day of the new year. So there's a lot to get into. Let's roll the stinger and we'll get into it. Welcome to the recap. I'm getting better at that.
That was good. Happy New Year, Tim.
Thank you. Can I say one thing really quick? I have to shout someone out. So the other day, I got a random package in my P.O. box, and I was like, oh no. It was a big package. It was like bigger than most.
Oh.
I'm thinking maybe it's a stack of books from a publisher. That happens sometimes. I unbox it, and in this unboxing is blueberry coffee, a 7-Eleven travel mug, and a 7-Eleven coffee mug. Okay? And our friends over at the podcast Digging Up the Duggars sent me a full-on Christmas care package, including their Christmas card, which was super cool.
Amazing.
So I just want to say to them, thank you so much, friends. I love this mug. It's super cool. And I am drinking freshly poured blueberry coffee out of it. So I had to get that out of the way. Shout out to Digging Up the Duggars. So cool. Thank you.
That's really cool.
Right?
Did you stay up till midnight on New Year's?
Yes, and we regretted it because we have children who don't give a shit that we stayed up till New Year's. We ended up, so our kids are 2 and 4, and they're wonderful, of course. I feel like every parent has to say that before they,
because
complain about
there's always
children.
Someone on the internet that will be like, so you hate your kids? It's like, no. They're just so aggressive. So you have to always like, I love my children.
I would take 1,000 bullets for my children at any given point ever, okay? But so the way it works in our family is my parents and my brother, they live by the shore. I live in New Jersey, about an hour away from us. So what we did was we went to my brother's house around like 6 o'clock, ate dinner with the kids, went to my parents' house, got the kids in bed to stay there for a few hours. Then we went back to my brother's house, just me and Sarah, to play a few board games and watch the ball drop, which we did. We played, have you ever played the board game Splendor?
Yes. We played it when you were here.
Did we play?
Not with you.
Not with me. I didn't play it.
You brought your Marvel version.
Yes.
And me and my family played it. Yeah.
And what was I doing?
Continue.
Okay, yeah,
I don't
sorry.
know.
Rabbit trail. I'm a very rude guest, apparently. So we played Splendor a couple times, watched the ball drop, slept over at my parents' house, went to bed around 1:30-ish, 1 o'clock. Kids were up at 6:30 in the morning, and they don't know that it's New Year's Day. So we get back home and they are just in go mode. We're trying to relax. The house is a disaster. I don't know how other parents feel about what I'm going to say now, but we clean our house all the time. We clean up, we vacuum 7 times a day. And every time we do, within seconds, it's like a category 5 tornado has ripped through our family room. Cheez-Its on the floor, toys everywhere. And it's like, dude, I just want to relax. Like, can we just sit and hang out? So I had a good New Year's overall, but it was also kind of tiring and not very relaxing.
I see that.
How was yours, April?
It was, Thank you, Tim. It was good. We stayed up till midnight. We started the year off on the right foot, as I said that we would. So we do that every year.
Love that.
My oldest is 8. So my kids are a little older than yours. They're 8 and 5. And our oldest now is old enough that she like wants to stay up later. So on special occasions, like we'll put both of them to bed, but the youngest will fall asleep and then we'll bring her out. And so she played games with us until like 10 before she went to bed. And she felt like she was just the coolest because we still have family in town. So like my one brother and then his wife and kids, they left a few days ago. And then my in-laws came in and they're going to be here. So anyway, it'll end up being like 2 weeks of family staying with us, which has been great. It's also just tiring. You just kind of feel like you're not right quite in the groove.
Yes.
But I did realize I kind of have this reflective excitement of like a new year and then like looking back on the year, and I was really struggling this year if I'm being honest. And Beach was like, give us a toast. And like all I could literally think of 2025 was Project 2025, and I was like, just the I don't know. I have a lot of anxiety over what the next 4 years are going to bring. So it's hard for me to be like, woo, yay, it's all going to be great, because I just really don't know.
I mean, April, nothing happened this year with anyone digitally that you started that you really enjoyed doing, maybe weekly. Nothing comes to mind in 2024. It was all shit. It was all terrible.
No, it was. I had some very great moments, like joining you on a recap.
Oh, you did? Oh,
yes.
I didn't even think about that. Wow,
that's actually
so cool.
The weird part is that like my personal life, like our family's doing well. Like we moved, and like it's been a good move. Like, and I joined you. I had a book come out this year.
You did?
Like personally, things have gone well. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but it just does. I don't know. I've just been in a funk, and maybe it's just because I've had family in here nonstop for 2 weeks.
Listen, to be fair, I feel that. We dropped my like annual recap of the year on podcasts and YouTube a couple days ago, so people can go back and watch that. But I did feel kind of weird saying on a personal level, I had a really great year. Like I feel really good as far as my mental health space goes. My family's doing really well. TNE did really well. Like we have a book coming out this year. And at the same time, I totally know and realize that on a macro level that will affect a lot of people's lives. What is coming politically is really freaking scary. Like I do feel... And, I'm someone obviously who is very privileged in America just by who I am biologically and, with all that stuff, my skin color. But I really do feel nervous. I'm genuinely like very concerned about where things are heading. And maybe it's because we know more now than we did even a year ago. Maybe it's because, April, you and I, many other people in this space have been like tracking the people and their theology and watching them get the power that they so desperately seek to, the fact that we're even entertaining the possibility that there could be a push to attempt to repeal the 19th Amendment should like freak all of us out. And that's a real thing. Like people like Joel Webbin, other people, Jason Whitlock said it at Turning Point America Fest last year or in 2023. There is talks about like how we should go back to a family vote. That stuff absolutely scares me. And I'm not sure what you do with that, because for me, that just pours a lot of gasoline on my fire to fight harder than ever. Like I just refuse to go down without a metaphorical fight. Like inch after inch of just taking ground back from what is like such a toxic, twisted ideology that is Christian nationalism. So I'm in that headspace while also feeling like you, where it's like, I had such a great year personally, and also, what am I going to be doing this year? Like, what do we do given the power that has been taken?
Yeah, I think it's like a two-edged sword, because when you are in this world and you consume Christian nationalist rhetoric all day, every day,
right.
Like, I know what they want, and I know what could happen if in a perfect storm, like everything goes right for them, which they're close to, which is scary. Right. But then on the flip side, I'm like, I don't want to fearmonger. I don't want to freak out about things that haven't happened yet. And then obviously there's people in the comments all the time that are gaslighting me, like, it's not bad, it's going to
I
be
know.
great, it's going to be fine. I'm like, I hope you're right. I hope
Yeah.
you're right.
No,
I would
100%.
gladly be wrong. I hope all my fears are wrong, and that, you know, democracy survives and it's all just dandy.
Well, I will say one of the maybe the bright sides, the silver linings, is that obviously, you and I, we're going to be building out our own show completely that will kind of spin off of the New Evangelicals. We're working on more and more content. We're working on strategy. The organization's working on stuff to give people a way to connect with each other in better ways than ever before. So there are a lot of people working behind the scenes, not even just here at TNE, but just even broader, that are working on building more coalitions and really thinking about how do we respond as Christians rooted in a very Jesus-centric worldview of loving our neighbor and loving all of our neighbors, not just some of them, and working on getting things done like affordable health care, etc. So that part is the language that we've been using at TNE has been the rebellion, join the rebellion. And I love that because I do feel like it kind of gives a sense of like, no, like we're not going to take this lying down. We're not going to accept it. And we're not going to accept a Christianity that wants to gaslight people like me and you and many in this audience that somehow we're not real Christians because we want to love all of our neighbors, because we don't think that queer people are inherently sinful and are going to burn in hell one day. Like, sorry. You don't get to take that label away from me because I hold to more inclusive, loving positions than you do. That's a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
And one thing I'm not going to do at this point in my journey spiritually is let that language go just because it's been hijacked by fundamentalists and Christian nationalists. If anything, this year I want to resolve to take more of that language back and say, no, you cannot have the corner on terms like worldview or biblical or Jesus or Christianity. You don't own that corner. We get to use that language too. And what it means for us is a more inclusive and loving and Jesus-centric view that advocates for the well-being of all of our neighbors. So there's maybe some silver lining if we can look at it that way. That could be good for 2025.
Yeah, no, that's true. I can't remember what we said we were going to next because I could do two segues here that both would really work.
We're going to President Jimmy Carter.
Great. Then what I was going to say is just kind of like how people are talking about Jimmy Carter since his passing and how he wasn't a true Christian because of some progressive views that he held, despite the fact that here he's like 90 something and just fell down and went to a Habitat for Humanity house build at like the next day. He's like, nah, screw these bruises. I'm building a house.
Yeah, I'm going to once again take back some other language here. Okay, there's all this talk in the right-wing space about what it means to be a real man and being a tough alpha male. Exhibit A, tough alpha male.
Here.
Like, this guy fell down the stairs, has a black and blue eye. I think he's like 95 in this picture, literally. He looks like he is on death's door. I mean, I'm sorry, that's how he looks. He's close. And what is he doing? He is helping to build a house for someone else.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know.
that is the kind of man I want my children to aspire to be when they grow up. That is the definition. Jimmy Carter was out of the public spotlight for so long, worked behind the scenes tirelessly. Now, of course, look, he's not perfect. I'm never going to say that somehow he did everything correct. Of course not. But my gosh, as far as like, how a Christian in America could live their life as well as possible, as close to following Jesus as possible, Carter is one example that we can look to and be like, this guy gave his life in service of others. And actually, I have a video. I made a video this week kind of recapping some of his life. How about I play it for the audience to kind of get up to speed, and then we can go from there. Does that work?
Do it.
Okay, do it. It's a little self-serving because it's my video, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Former President Jimmy Carter embodies the kind of Christianity we need today. One that's rooted in humility, service, and a commitment to justice. As a lifelong Baptist, Carter used his faith not to dominate others, but to serve them. During his presidency, he emphasized human rights and peace building, living out the gospel's call to love our neighbors. No exceptions. Even after leaving office, Carter's faith continued to shine, from building homes with Habitat for Humanity to combating global diseases. His life is a testimony to Christianity in action, rooted in loving one's neighbor as themselves. He's never used faith as a weapon for power, but as a tool for healing. In 2005, he said, "I have a commitment to worship the Prince of Peace, not the Prince of Preemptive War," criticizing the decision to invade Iraq. And he went on to say, I believe Christ taught us to give special attention to the plight of the poor. That's not Marxism. That's basic Christianity. And I can't help but compare Carter's legacy of faith to who so many Christians think is the champion of godly biblical values today. Donald Trump embodies not one of the basic teachings of Christ. He lives life for himself. He uses others for his gain. He lies about everything, and he dehumanizes the most vulnerable people among us. A Christianity that embraces Trump as their champion is an antichrist counterfeit that rejects the way of Jesus. In a time when Christian nationalism distorts the gospel into a tool for division and control, Carter's legacy reminds us what true faith looks like: inclusive, compassionate, and deeply concerned with the common good. This is a Christianity worth believing, and that is a Jesus worth following.
Boom.
Amen.
Thank
Snaps
you
for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I mean, that is a small snapshot of just who Carter was as a person.
Yeah. I saw a quote. I can't remember who it was by. So forgive me, person, whoever it was. That was like something like Jimmy Carter became president and then went on to do great things. Like he never stopped serving people. And even after, like, the presidency wasn't the most that he achieved.
Well, did you also hear the story, April, about back in the day, I think like in the early 80s, something like that. I think Jimmy Carter gave an interview to, I think it was Playboy magazine. I'm trying to find, yeah, it's Playboy magazine. And he essentially said that, what did he say here?
Someone told me, I saw somewhere that he actually gave an interview to someone else and then Playboy bought it.
Okay, maybe that's the case. Either way, though, he literally said that, like, was that essentially he repented for lusting in his heart, I guess, after women. And Jerry Falwell picked that up and was like, I'm really concerned about Jimmy Carter admitting that in front of everyone. Like, think about how far we've come from a president admitting that he has lusted before and how he's sorry for doing that, compared to someone who brags about grabbing women by the you-know-what and gets applauded by the white evangelical machine by saying, you know, he's not perfect, but that's just locker room talk, and he represents bringing godly values back to America that really care about the family unit. Think about how far that movement has come from Jerry Falwell being like, I don't know, guys, I'm kind of concerned that Carter even admitted publicly that, you know, he has lusted before, compared to someone who was found liable for sexually assaulting a woman and is still applauded by the people that we're going to see now who think that, you know, for some reason Carter wasn't a real Christian. So where should we start?
And he's never repented for that.
Never. He hasn't repented for anything. Have you
fact,
ever heard?
He has said, and he has said he's never needed to. Yeah. So not only has he not repented, he said, I'm great. I'm good. There's nothing I need to repent for.
Just to be clear, I just want to remind you that when people tell you that you're not a real Christian because you don't endorse Trump or Trumpism or MAGA or right-wing Christianity, you're being gaslit. Okay? Every accusation is truly a confession. Just remember that going into 2025. You're not crazy for thinking to yourself, I don't get it, guys. How come we're celebrating the man who wants to grab women, who actually sleeps with adult film stars while his wife is pregnant? Why are we celebrating this man as being a God-fearing, godly, man that God is using, that God has anointed to save America from the brink of collapse? Which, by the way, was said on the stage at America Fest this past year, with Charlie Kirk saying that God chose Trump to save us from the brink of disaster. I mean, it is just unbelievable to hear these Christians talk like this. So I'll stop ranting now, but remember, you're being gaslit whenever someone tells you that. Anyway. Okay.
And the people that are going after Jimmy Carter,
let's talk
because
about
of
that.
course, so Jimmy Carter obviously died this week at 100. And honestly, my first reaction was kind of like, good for him. Get out while you can, Jimmy. Like,
right.
He got to.
The ship isn't sinking, buddy.
There's a piece of me that's like, whew, good, just good for him. He saw what was coming and he's like, yeah, no thanks, I'm good. Peace out. Going to heaven.
I'm out.
But yeah, I'm not sure when the actual funeral is going to be, but I think Joe Biden should be able to do it instead of Donald Trump, which Donald Trump surprisingly actually posted something kind of nice about Jimmy Carter, which I am pretty sure that he did not write it. Did you see what he wrote?
No, what did
Hold
he
on.
say? Pull it up.
I'll pull it up. He posted it on Truth Social. It was surprisingly coherent. Okay, here it is. Trump posted on Truth Social, I just heard the news about the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Those of us who have been fortunate to have served as president understand this is a very exclusive club, and only we can relate to the enormous responsibility of leading the greatest nation in history. The challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And then he said that him and Melania were thinking warmly of the Carter family and their loved ones during this difficult time. We urge everyone to keep them in their hearts and prayers.
Do you know who wrote that? Do you know who wrote that? ChatGPT wrote that shit. Okay, there is no way that Trump wrote that.
The only thing that sounds a little bit like Trump was when he goes on this tangent where we're like, by the way, being a president is an exclusive club that I am in, and a very small percentage of people are in.
No,
like
right.
Jimmy Carter.
Wait, let me ask you a question, April. Were there any all cap rants in that in that
which
tweet?
is why I don't
that's not
think it
Trump.
was
That's
him.
not Trump.
Yeah.
No. Was there any connection to the deep state or to the evil libs who hated Carter or something like that? No,
that's why it
wasn't
was
Trump.
Shocking. Yeah, that's why I was like, this doesn't sound like Trump. And I was like, just pause.
Right.
How sad is it that a post like that actually shocked me? That's what I found surprising. Like, wow, that was somewhat respectable.
Right.
And then
Wait,
instead of his normal,
something's
like,
amiss.
Oh gosh.
But let's talk about some of the other Christian nationalists and right-wing hardliners who, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just in a very extra jovial mood, but these people just have such audacity to really think that they have the kind of authority and power to determine who is a Christian and who is not. Maybe we can go to our favorite fundy baddie, William Wolf. I mean, this. I'm sorry, this guy. He is so deeply unserious, and I would laugh at him more if he wasn't tapped into political power. He was in the Trump administration, I think, last go around. Like, this guy has power and connections to it. Anyway, do you want to read this tweet of what William Wolf wrote about Jimmy Carter? Remember, friends, we just played my little montage celebrating what Carter has done. Lifelong Baptist, taught Sunday school for like 40 years in his old Baptist church, lived a man of simple pleasures, like lived under the radar, built houses for poor people, said his faith motivated everything that he did. Enter William Wolf.
William Wolf writes, Jimmy Carter was not a Bible-believing Christian by any stretch. Maybe he was once, but he left the faith long ago. So, of course, Christianity yesterday lionizes him as if he was. He means Christianity today.
Wow. Good one, William. You really got him.
Not a ching. Okay, so he continues. Carter was a progressive liberal Christian, in quotes, who remade Christianity into his own version of the faith that was about, quote, being nice and, quote, good works. The horror! But he rejected the inerrancy and inspiration of Scripture, the exclusivity of the gospel and salvation in Christ alone. And he affirmed so-called, quote, homosexual marriage.
Oh, my God. I mean... By the way, William, the book of James says that without works, faith is dead. Faith without works is dead. So I'm just saying, like, this is once again the trickery of this language. He was not a Bible-believing Christian. James, faith without works is dead. William Wolf, oh, that's not what it means. Like, this is what they do. It's so frustrating.
But notice how he's like, he remade Christianity into his own version of the faith that was about being nice and good works. And the way he writes that's like a, ha!
Yeah,
how dare he? How dare he do good works?
What's the fruit of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. That sounds like being nice. That sounds like nice things. This is why I say they're so unserious. They are so deeply unserious that William can write this with a straight face and be like, I nailed it. Tweet.
This is exactly what we were talking about last week, I think, where they value belief over action. And even though Jimmy Carter did like every good action that you could possibly think of for the most part, like if there was an example of someone who lived a Christian life, like Jimmy Carter he'd be on a list somewhere of people that have actually done that. But because his ideology was not conservative,
exactly,
they think he was not a Christian because they have equated conservatism with Christianity.
And make no mistake, okay, this is good. This goes back to what Scott Coley, author of The Ministers of Propaganda, says. This is called motivated literalism. Mm-hmm. William Wolfe will say that the Bible's, it's inerrant, the inspired word of God, etc. And then when there are passages that talk about being nice or doing good works, they're ignored in favor of other passages that then become literalized. Also, obviously, William doesn't care about what someone believes because he loves Trump, and Trump does not affirm any kind of orthodox Christian belief set. He would say here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing, though. He would say that he would because he knows how to get this base on his team, right? Trump would probably say, of course I believe in the resurrection. And then Wolf would go, great, you're in. But people like you and me who also believe in the resurrection, right, but because we're queer affirming, we're automatically out. Because William Wolfe is committed to his dogma.
Yeah. And they benefit by Trump being on their side. And so they will overlook the most egregious of sins or blunders.
I like flunders better, to be honest. Flunders.
But it kind of reminds me, like, I don't know if you did this. This is kind of a sidebar, but it's related. When you were growing up, I wasn't allowed to listen to a ton of secular music. I could listen to a little bit, but I had a better chance. Like, this was back when there were like CD stores, right? You go in. They had the little samples where you could listen to it. And so I would always go, if there was a CD that I wanted, I would go to where the artist had their thank yous and like the little pamphlet. And if they thanked God, especially if they thanked Jesus Christ, with Justin Timberlake thanking Jesus in his first CD was what my parents gave the green light to like let me buy. It was like, see, Mom, they're Christian. So, like, I'm bending over backwards to find any sort of hint that the person's a Christian and then running with it because it benefited my narrative.
Yes.
That's what they do with Trump.
100%.
He just, like, holds a Bible. And they're like, see, he's a Christian. We don't have to, don't look too hard. It's fine.
Don't look too hard. No, exactly. Ignore the sexual assault. I mean, it's not that, or the greed, or the womanizing, or the lies. Ignore those parts. And what the Bible says about that, ignore that. But he's great. But Jimmy Carter is a heretic. He's a damn heretic who was never a real Christian because we said so. Because we are the arbiters and the gatekeepers of Christianity. Please, in 2025, here's a New Year's resolution for all of you out there. Take these people and what they say, crumple up their little thoughts, and throw them in the trash and move on with your life. Like, there's nothing of value from William Wolfe or Megan Basham or other folks that we cover. They offer nothing of value to these conversations. They are literally like anti-intellectual frauds who have convinced themselves that they are somehow standing on the cornerstone of all objective truth through their very narrow fundamentalist lens.
Yeah.
Next tweet.
Yes, go for it.
Let's get over to good old Megan Basham. Speaking of Megan, she does not like me at all, which is a shame.
This entire group,
it's just,
which I would put Meg and William Wolfe, and they all retweet each other all the time. They are the Christian nationalist group that are kind of would say they're not Christian nationalists. Although I think William Wolfe actually has said he's a Christian nationalist.
For sure. No, he's all in. He's all in.
They're definitely Christian nationalists. So she jumped in on the thing. She quote tweets Mike Pence, who said some positive things about Jimmy Carter. And she wrote, can you zoom in a tad? It's a little blurry.
I'll try.
Is it possible? I can also.
Is that better?
No, I'll just figure it out.
I can read it.
Oh, okay. You read it.
I mean, you read things better. Let's face it, but I'll try it.
Okay.
Megan Basham writes, it's good to praise the praiseworthy aspects of Jimmy Carter's legacy upon his passing. and there is certainly no call to be nasty. But it is not okay for Pence to say that Carter, quote, lived out his Christian faith with integrity, when in a number of key respects, he did not do so. This demonstrates why Christian voters have so often found Pence uninspiring. And then she has a picture from The Hill saying, Jimmy Carter says, I believe that Jesus would approve of gay marriage. So Megan
that
says,
is their example. That literally, but look, that's belief. That's belief again. That literally has nothing to do with anything that he did.
But this gets so much better. This tweet gets, April, props to you for digging this one up, because someone went back to Megan and posted, and they said this. They said, so does our president-elect, referring to him approving of gay marriage. And it's a quote.
Donald
from
Trump. Yeah,
I'm sorry. From Trump, yeah. Quote, I think Pete Buttigieg's marriage to another man is absolutely fine. I do. It's a sign of great progress. I think it's great. I have no problem with it whatsoever. President Donald Trump, 5/20/2019. Megan, okay, so hold on. Let's just, before we give Megan's response, if you're listening to this on podcast, to be clear, Megan says that Jimmy Carter was not a great Christian man, and we should not celebrate much of him besides some of the good things that she thinks are good because of his approval of gay marriage. And then Trump approves gay marriage and says it's great. It's a sign of progress. And this guy goes, this person who tweeted her goes, hey, Meg, like, obviously, what do you think about this? She goes, yes. And if Pence held out Trump as a model of living out the Christian faith with integrity, I'd have plenty to say about that. To which I want to pull out my hair and go, Megan Basham, you claim to be a Daily Wire journalist. You claim, as Ben Shapiro says, to do journalism really hard, okay? That's what Ben says. And you don't know or think that there are Christian leaders out there, so many of them in your camp, who praise Trump as a model for living out biblical values and
as
being
a
chosen
hero
by
of
God?
the faith?
There are books written calling him the second Messiah. I own them. There are prophecies given about how God is using Trump to drain the swamp, how God has anointed Trump with a special calling on his life, how Trump is going to bring back biblical values and bring back Christianity and make America great again. What are you talking about, Megan?
No.
The whole reason your world celebrates Trump is because you think that he embodies so-called biblical values better than your opponents. You are deeply...
She writes a whole book about shepherds for sale. Like there's some kind of leftist drift in Christianity because some people don't like Trump because Trump, a million reasons.
Somewhere.
But she writes a whole book about that. Like she is very concerned that there are Christians who don't like Trump. And there are hundreds. I've seen probably approaching 1,000 that I've personally seen of Facebook posts of people comparing Trump to Jesus, of people saying that Trump is so godly, that he cares about Christians and that he's fighting for Christianity because he loves Jesus. Even James Dobson was like, he said the prayer. He's a Christian.
I know.
A great Christian man. And
he's
she has
a
the
baby
audacity
Christian.
to be like, oh, I would call those people out too. No, you wouldn't, Meg. They've been doing this for 8 years. You haven't said a single word.
Trump has claimed to be a Christian. Trump has claimed. He says that he's Presbyterian. Give me a break. Like, hold on. Megan Basham, if you're watching this, you're not going to, but if you are.
Is it Basham or Basham?
If I'm mispronouncing it, that part of this rant is not intentional. I apologize if that's not true. I don't know. I'm just going with Basham.
Go your rant. Do your rant.
Megan, you cannot, with a straight face, tell us that you are consistent in applying these so-called biblical values that you have. It is so blatantly obvious what you're doing. It is so clear that your dogma and presuppositions inform how you vote and who you vote for and who you stamp as being a true Christian or a Bible-believing Christian or a person chosen by God to bring back order and biblical values back to the country. You are deeply unserious. Like you are you and your whole crew are deeply unserious people. You have no intellectual integrity, zero, and you have no ability to self-reflect and look at your own biases. We all have biases, Megan. I have them. April has them. Over here. April has them. We have them. We know we got them, and we're willing to admit that we got them. But you are not. You sit on Twitter all day, clapping back at people, and it's just like so. It's unbelievable, Megan. Like, how do you read this? How do you read this?
And she doesn't say she'd call it. She said she'd have plenty to say about it.
Yeah,
well,
but I can. You know what? There are several books written out there, Megan. I'll send you that compare Trump to the Messiah, the Christ. There are plenty of prophets out there who have laid hands on Trump, insisting that God has chosen him for such a time as this. Trump himself has called himself a Christian. So why don't you be that that ethical journalist that you claim to be, and actually do the work of journalism, and actually call this stuff out instead of being a sycophant for a literal sexual abuser, a man who has no family values, a man who's on his third marriage, a man who lies through his teeth. Like, I'm just so, you know what, April, maybe this year is the year where Tim Whitaker is done sugarcoating this to his opponents. Like, I'm all done trying to find the common ground with some of these folks in this sense. I'll talk to Megan anytime. I'll get lunch with her anytime. I will ask her these questions to her face because the math ain't mathing, Megan. It's just not. And I'm just so tired of it. I'm tired of being told that people like you and me, April, are not real Christians because we love all of our neighbors and want the best for them. And people like Megan Basham and Doug Wilson and all these folks who peddle blatantly conspiratorial thinking, sometimes blatantly racist thinking, etc., are somehow the bastions of what Christianity should be like in America. It's an absolute joke, and I'm not taking it anymore. The end.
And just like the
thank you for letting me say that.
Like,
thank you. Appreciate that.
They're just so condescending too about
oh my God.
who is and who is not a Christian. Like I just don't do that with them. Like I'm not going to go and be like, Megan Basham is not a real Christian because da da da. Like I have my doubts on whether or not she's following certain teachings of Jesus.
Sure.
But that's not my place. I'm not going to go around and say these people are not Christian. They are Christian. And also, this is just a sidebar too. When we say, like, and I see a lot of people from the more left or more progressive spaces say this a lot about Trump supporters, like, oh, they're not true Christians either.
Yep.
And I disagree with, like, I would not say that because one, that's not our job to say who is and is not a Christian. And two, that is almost a cop-out. And it takes the blame off of Christianity for a lot of harm that the religion Christianity has done, historically speaking. And a lot of really bad people have claimed Christianity. Think of 1930s Germany.
Yep.
And if you just say, well, they weren't true Christians, that just opens the door for us to repeat that history again,
100%.
because we're not owning the fact that Christianity historically has done some pretty terrible things.
And we're going to get into that at the end when we talk about the whole terrorist attack situation, because it is unbelievable watching Christians and how they're responding. It's shocking to me. Yes, but I agree with you. Why don't we talk about, speaking of MAGA and all that stuff, the ongoing civil war that has kind of broken out, which we knew. I mean, I got to say, April, you are a prophet because you kind of called this out last year where you were like, maybe they'll start eating each other alive over certain things. And
that
then
was
all of
my
a sudden,
hope. Yes.
This situation happens that is just kind of like, it's a good example. And also, I found myself being like, why do I agree with some of these people and what they're saying? So here's what's going on. Our show producer, Cassidy, put this together for me so I can kind of read some of this stuff out for you. So here's what's happening. A recent dispute has emerged between Elon Musk and certain supporters of Donald Trump's Make America Great Again movement, centering on U.S. immigration policies, particularly the H-1B visa program. This program allows U.S. companies to employ highly skilled foreign workers in specialized fields. Usually, these break out in the tech sector mostly. So people from different countries who are maybe engineers or skilled at coding can get an H-1B visa, come over to the U.S. and get a job. And I'm not sure the average salary, they range between $80,000 up to $250,000, depends on the job. But a lot of big companies like those at Tesla, Apple, etc., use this visa program to bring in, we can say, foreign labor to get the job done for their companies. So The controversy began when President-elect Trump appointed Saram Krishnan, an Indian-born tech entrepreneur, as the White House senior policy advisor for artificial intelligence. Krishnan has previously advocated for easing immigration restrictions for skilled workers, including supporting the removal of country caps for green cards to unlock skilled immigration. Far-right activist Laura Loomer, we'll get into her in a minute, criticized Christian's appointment, expressing concerns that his pro-immigration stance conflicts with Trump's America First agenda. Loomer and other MAGA supporters argue that expanding programs like the H-1B visa undermine American workers by allowing foreign labor to take jobs that should be reserved for U.S. citizens. Okay, so Laura Loomer, who, by the way, is quite racist, and says things that are just out of control, is like, hey, Trump, whoa, you ran on a Make America Great Again platform, and you just hired someone in your cabinet who would, potentially want to ease immigration restriction to get more people from other countries over here that would take away jobs from us Americans. That's her line of thinking so far. Okay, Elon Musk, the billionaire, he's also an immigrant to the U.S., defended the H-1B program, emphasizing the necessity of attracting top international talent to maintain America's competitive edge in technology and innovation. He stated, quote, "There is a dire shortage of extremely talented and motivated engineers in America." By the way, side note, maybe it's because college is unaffordable. I mean, I'm no genius, but when college is like $100,000 to attend, I'm just saying maybe that people don't want to do that. Just an idea. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Musk further argued that restricting skilled immigration would lead to America losing its competitive advantage. Amid the debate, Trump expressed support for the H-1B visa program, stating, quote, "I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them." Unless it's Haitian immigrants coming over to Ohio. This position contrasts with his earlier campaign promise to end the program, highlighting a shift that aligns more closely with Silicon Valley leaders like Musk. This dispute underscores a significant divide within Trump's support base, pitting tech industry leaders who advocate for skilled immigration against nativist elements concerned about the impact on American workers. The debate highlights the challenges in reconciling these different perspectives within the broader MAGA movement. Also, Vivek Ramaswamy had a really long tweet that kind of broke out why he's in favor of the H-1B program as well. And like I said, and to your point, there is an all-out civil war because people like Steve Bannon, who's a major player in this space, and Laura Loomer are like, wait a second, what's going on? And so is Charlie Kirk. I have a few clips that we can play, actually, to demonstrate this, and then we'll get into it. So I have so many thoughts on this. So here's Laura Loomer, and this is just listen to what she said here. Here we go.
What is it going to mean for the future of our country, our national security, and the incoming Trump administration if we have a bunch of technocrats who are also essentially welfare queens because their companies are receiving government subsidies and they want to take over our defense industry? If you have a bunch of tech bros with billions of dollars and direct unfettered access to the vice president and the president of the United States, and then they are also, very cordial with our adversaries, as in China and Iran. We see that Elon Musk is having these meetings off the books with Iranian officials, with Chinese officials. What does that mean for us and the future of our constitutional republic?
Okay, hang on.
Okay. Now let's get rid of that racist dog whistle welfare queen, because that is, like I said, we said this earlier, Laura is very racist. So let's get rid of that for a second. I'm glad that Laura agrees with us, because we've been saying this now for months, and so have many other people, that, hey, maybe bringing in billionaires into the presidency and giving them this much unfettered access to our government is a really bad idea, because maybe they don't have America's best interests at heart, or even their workers at heart. And Laura Loomer's like, hey, guys, I'm no genius, but yeah, we have these technocrats who have all this power, who are talking to all these other countries. Maybe it's kind of suspicious. And I go, yes, Laura, I'm so glad you're waking up to the problem of putting in bed massive corporations and their billionaire owners and the government. It doesn't work out well for the American worker at all.
People. Yeah.
The people. Exactly. It doesn't at all. And by the way, to be clear, sorry, I want to be extra clear in this. I don't think, April, you and I are saying that we would not be in support, of course, of having people from other countries do work in America. That is not the point. What happens is that a lot of these companies use that program to pay highly skilled people less wages to make more money. That's the problem. They actually use the system to bring in people from other places in the world who might not need as much to live, and that actually takes away from fair wages for people who live in America. So it's a complicated issue. I'm not going to try and pretend I know everything about it, but to Laura's point, again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, she is right when she says, like, maybe we shouldn't have such a close alliance between the government and billionaires. Like, yes, Laura, you're totally correct.
Yeah, well, they're just starting to wake up that Donald Trump doesn't actually care about working class people. He's putting all of his billionaire friends in his cabinet, and the billionaires are going to benefit from a Trump presidency, not anybody else.
Right.
I don't know if you pulled her tweets at all, but she also was tweeting a lot of this rhetoric directly to, I don't know if she tagged Elon, but she was definitely like tweeting about this, and Elon pulled her little blue check away. Took it away. Demonetized
he punished her, right?
Yeah. And they were all like, Elon brought free speech back to Twitter. And then, no, he didn't. Only if you agree with Elon.
Trump, it's not Trump. Elon is an oligarch. Elon is an elitist. Elon does not believe in free speech absolution like he says, because to your point, you're right. He pulled her check mark. He canceled all of her subscriptions, and she had like no recourse. She could do nothing besides just get demonetized off a platform because Overlord Elon said so. Yeah. Now, I do want to play this other clip too, because Charlie Kirk also had something to say about this and about the program. Here's what he said.
This is a violation of our social contract. And it sounds good. Let's just let more H-1B workers in. But what about the 23-year-old that went to University of Washington and studied computer science at the UW Computer Science Department? Shouldn't he be given preference above someone who could do the work for far less? It is about priorities, and it's not about what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this debate. It's very simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children and the American worker, not the American oligarch.
Okay, now I have a lot to say about this clip. First off, Charlie is the same person who wrote a book called The College Scam. So for him to actually advocate for college kids, the kid who got a degree, it's like, yeah, Charlie, your rhetoric actually undermines your entire point. And this is the problem with this Make America Great Again movement, this like right-wing nationalist outlook, because these are the same people who are like, defund the Department of Education. If you took out school loans, you have to pay them back. But you realize that when you do that, right, and kids don't get access to affordable education, they actually lower the amount of talent in the American workforce that can do said jobs. Like, it is unbelievable that these people are like... Yeah,
they're defunding the Department of Education. That's part of Project 2025.
Did I? I thought I just said that.
Did you say that?
I thought I did. Maybe I
know
did.
you mentioned it in college.
Sorry, but exactly. Yeah. They want to defund the Department of Education. They don't believe that our taxes should go to paying teachers a really fair wage. They don't believe that higher education should be affordable. They don't believe that we should regulate the predatory for-profit college loan system. And then they're going to go, these programs are so unfair. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Charlie. Like, I'm all about giving people who live in America access to affordable education, because a smart society is an advanced society that helps people do better work and innovate, all that stuff, of course. But, dude, you wrote a book called The College Scam. Like, give me a break. That's not how this works.
I know.
It's so
it's because it is aggravating, but there's so much cognitive dissonance that goes on in this ideology. And maybe we all hold some cognitive dissonance at some point in some ways. Like, no one's immune, but just at a basic level, like, these are people who are pro-life, they claim, but then they also support policies that kill thousands of people or hundreds of people, and don't actually support systems that would help unwed mothers or unplanned pregnancies, and are for the death penalty, and are anti-immigration. Like, they supported Trump because he was so anti-immigration, And then now they're seeing that they're not actually anti-immigration. They're just anti-certain immigration.
Exactly.
And they picked a certain group of people that they knew they could rally people around. And most of the people coming over the southern border, they're actually not a threat.
Yep.
Like 99.9% of those people are families. They're not a threat. They're not violent. They're trying to look for a better life. And they're taking jobs that a lot of Americans wouldn't take anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't. I just feel like the next 4 years is going to be a lot of the find out phase that a lot of people are not prepared for.
And I want to be clear on my end. I'm not trying to say that I agree with Charlie by saying that we need less quote unquote foreign workers in the country. That is not my point at all.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. I think that's really good. I think that we need to have, a country that is in the global mix and is able to attract talent, people who want to work and do all kinds of jobs. I think that's really good. It's just very interesting to watch Charlie be like, whoa, I don't get it. Like, why would Elon Musk be in favor of this? Like, all of a sudden he's shocked that a tech oligarch who probably profits a lot off of using the visa program, again, to pay people less of a wage for the same amount of work compared to someone in America based on, right, the college loan industry. Look, put it like this. And I don't know how the education system works in other countries that might be very popular for using the H-1B program. I don't know. But I will tell you, in America, if someone wants to get like an advanced degree in engineering or technology, they're probably going to be at least $100,000 in debt by the time they get out of college, at least, right? Mm-hmm. So you just need a certain amount of money as a salary to just survive. Now, if you live in Silicon Valley, if you live in San Francisco, it's even crazier. Like the cost of living is so extraordinarily high. So what Charlie's advocating for is he's essentially saying we have to prioritize American citizens first when it comes to work. Okay, Charlie, I get you. If you really believe that, though, then why would you write a book called The College Scam? Why would you rail against Department of Education and other things that would make access to education more accessible and more affordable? And why would you not want to regulate tech oligarchs like Elon Musk, who, again, have every incentive to pay as little as possible for the most amount of labor to make their companies as profitable as possible, to impress their shareholders, to make their net worth go up? Why would you think that Elon Musk is some kind of great American doing great work when his whole incentive revolves around him making more money at the expense of other people? It doesn't add up. And I'm thrilled to see this civil war happening because it exposes, first off, just the blatant racism of some of these people, and number two, it exposes how the rhetoric folds in on itself. It's not congruent at all. It makes absolutely no sense. But here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
And I will say, in this little dust up that's happened, Trump basically came out and picked sides with Elon.
Of course he did. Trump is a so-called billionaire. Duh. Yeah. Trump is not draining the swamp. He is filling the swamp. The most billionaires ever in like a cabinet is happening now with Trump. Like, he has stacked the deck in favor of his billionaire friends. Did you see the article that people are paying so much money to pray with him on Inauguration Day? Listen to this.
I saw a headline. I thought, surely that's a joke.
Hold on. Let me find it.
I guess it was not a joke.
Okay, here we go. Look, this is God, I love the internet. This is Yahoo. Trump reportedly charging $100K for inauguration church service tickets. Ahead of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's January 2025 inauguration, Snopes received a number of questions from readers about tickets to specific events that weekend. One claim stated that Trump was charging donors $100,000 to attend a Sunday service with him the day before the inauguration. So that's the current claim. I'm trying to see if it's fact-checked or not here. Let's see. Okay, according to The Hill, the One America, One Light Sunday service will be an interfaith service involving U.S. military bands. It is unknown where this service will be held. The schedule was released to donors in early December with a January 10th deadline. The most expensive package includes 6 tickets to the victory rally, cabinet reception, church service, candlelight dinner with Trump's swearing-in ceremony, parade and ball, and 2 tickets to the dinner with Vice President-elect. So I'm trying to see how much it is here. I'm kind of in real time unpacking this. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so if you... Wow. You get okay if you. I'm trying to read this. Can you see this, April?
It's a little bit
graph
blurry,
here.
but yeah.
Is that better? So here,
Yeah.
it says make America. Okay, so if you raise a certain amount or give a certain amount, you get certain tickets. Yeah, and the lowest amount, 2 tickets, is if you, $50,000 or raise $100,000 for 2 tickets to some of these
Jeez.
things. Yeah, and that includes the service.
Hey, Megan. Here's your
Jeez.
opportunity.
Here you
This
go.
is a Christian event.
Here you go.
There's a church service, praying. What are you going to call this out, Megan?
Probably not. Anyway, it's just.
Oh,
yeah.
wait. Oh, yeah,
What?
no, that's advanced. Oh,
I got it here. What's up?
no, sorry. It said Vance, and for a split second, my mind thought Pence, and I was like, oh, this is old. But Pence and Vance are very similar together. But yeah, a USA Today headline from January 2nd says, turns out Trump is okay with immigrants if they help his billionaire friends.
Right.
And
That's
that
what this is all
basically,
about.
Trump chose the billionaires who gave him lots and lots of money because at the end of the day, that is all Trump cares about is
100%.
money.
Trump's 100%. Guys, don't forget Elon Musk and his brother admitted this, by the way. I found the video. That for a little bit, they were undocumented immigrants in America working illegally under the visa program. Elon was not a legal immigrant for quite some time. They don't care because Elon is Elon. He supports their ideology. And again, I just want to point out, we have to say it, this anti-immigrant sentiment has been baked into the American psyche for a long time. It comes right out of the playbook of white supremacy, the KKK in the early 20th century. We see it again with David Duke in the 80s. Like there's a constant theme here of whipping up the true Americans, which, by the way, are not always citizens. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we get to this whole terrorist attack situation. But whipping Americans or certain types of Americans up into a frenzy thinking that their country's being invaded, right? This is the whole language here. And what they do is they'll take examples of sensational stories or crime that happens at the hands of an undocumented immigrant, and they'll use that to apply it to the entire swath of people who are therefore undocumented immigrants. The word for that's called bigotry, by the way. But we know, thanks to the Cato Institute, that undocumented immigrants are half as likely to commit crimes than their native-born citizens. Or counterparts. Most of them just want to live in peace and make it work here. And by the way, our immigration system, you can check out our interview earlier this Monday about this. I had 2 experts on. Our immigration system is intentionally broken. It has not been updated in like 35, 40 years. So we have a system set up that is so messed up. Nothing is streamlined. It hasn't been updated in a long time. And we have people here in the country who are just trying to live with their kids. Trump's a big push was get those evil criminals out of our country, mass deportations now. That gets picked up by right-wing nationalists like Kirk and Laura Loomer, etc. And then when Trump is exposed to actually be in favor of certain kinds of immigrants, again, if they help their billionaire buddies, all of a sudden Charlie and Laura and Steve Bannon are like, whoa, guys, I don't understand. Like, what's going on? I thought America first. Like, dude, they're billionaires. And also maybe invest in public education if you want more talent in America. Like, this isn't hard. So anyway, I'm a little ranty today, but we had to kind of put that I wanted to stitch that whole thing together so people kind of got the big picture of how this world functions. It is so inherently dysfunctional. And it's built on propaganda. And here's the result. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what happens during Trump's term because he hasn't even been inaugurated yet, and there's already been quite a bit of infighting from a lot of the people that voted for him and then his billionaire friends. But since it is his second term, I don't know how much Trump is going to care if he alienates his own base because he doesn't need to be reelected, but he's also a narcissist and wants to be liked.
100%.
So
100%.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. But the infighting has begun. And we need more of that. We just need it to keep happening to slow down whatever crap they try to do to the country.
And we need to expose this, right? We have to point out that so much of this is done in the name of Jesus or in Christianity. There's so much theology that undergirds so much of this anti-immigration sentiment that we'll have to keep exposing, throughout 2025. Don't worry. So.
Megan Basham said she's got plenty to say about it if they invoke Christianity. So I'm sure she's on the job.
I'm sure if there's one person we can trust to really cover the story, it's Megan. Let's get into kind of the big breaking news that is honestly tragic. So there was they're calling it a terrorist attack as far as we know that happened. So essentially on New Year's Day, a man rammed into a crowded street in New Orleans that killed so far 15 people. There was also a bomb that went off in a Cybertruck by a Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and authorities are saying that they don't think that the driver of the truck in New Orleans acted alone. He had an ISIS flag on the back of his truck, which is interesting. And like that is, I mean, that just was kind of like, whoa, I have not heard that name in a long time. And also, they're looking into seeing if more people were involved behind all of this. So the actual person driving the truck, I'm not going to say his name. You can look it up if you want. But he is a native-born citizen, to be very clear. He was born in Texas, etc. So we're not really sure what happened or what the motive.
He was also an Army veteran.
Yes, Army veteran. And we know what happened, but we don't know the motivation for why he did what he did. We're still kind of unpacking all of that. However, that would not stop Trump in particular from just tweeting the most baseless nonsense. So I want to pull this up because, again, first off, our hearts and our prayers, of course, all go out to the victims and the families of the victims. This is not good. And to be, again, just extra clear because we have to, kind of like April when we clarified that we love our kids before we, complain about our kids being up too late. To be very clear, we, of course, denounce what happened. Any kind of act of violence is wrong. It's terrible. We are not in favor of that, etc. Okay, so we are going to call this what they're calling it, a terrorist attack. No problem. That's fine. That's what happened. And also, we're watching right-wing media and right-wing actors pick this story up and just applying it to situations that make absolutely no sense. In particular, with Trump. I want to pull up the Trump tweet because I think it's important because he sets the tone for his followers, right? We all know that for the world of MAGA, Trump is their epistemology. If Trump says something, it's therefore true. So before we had any major details, except for the fact that this man was not, in fact, foreign-born, Trump, on his Truth Social site, which is just so ironic, says, quote, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil." Okay, two things. Once again, this person was an American citizen. He was born in America. He's an American native. He was in our military. So Trump using this situation to then tie it back to the criminals that are, quote unquote, invading our country is ridiculous. But number two, he says the crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. It's just blatantly not true. Like, it's blatantly not true. Here's the crime rates per 100,000 people, okay, up to 2022. Since the 80s, crime has been steadily decreasing, and violent crime since 2010 has pretty much plateaued. So the problem is that if you were on X all day, or if you watched America's news network, OAN, or Fox News, you would think that, and by the way, bad things do happen. Terrorist attacks are terrible. Mass shootings happen. They're all bad things. But you would think that we're living in some unprecedented time of crime being committed mostly by undocumented immigrants. But that's just not factually true. And it drives me bonkers that we can't have a conversation that's both and. We can't be honest about what has happened in New Orleans and without tying it back to the bigger conversation of, oh, well, therefore, we need Muslims out of the country, which I'm seeing some of those sentiments because of the ISIS flag. We don't even know this person's religious affiliation or why he did what he did. And the narrative is already, oh my God, get them all out of here. See, this is the problem with mass immigration. But they're two separate things completely. But this is how propaganda works, April. It's a little bit of truth tied to a lot of lies that create a brand new story.
Well, yeah, and because they go with whatever fits their narrative. So they see someone that might look Muslim, that's got an ISIS flag, and they're going to use this to paint all Muslims as terrorists, to paint with a broad brush and say, like, see, this is bad. This is why we need to stop immigration. They're all violent, even though he wasn't an immigrant.
Right.
But they will take what they need. It was the same thing with one of the shootings. there was a shooting where someone identified non-binary, I think, but they used that to show that all trans people were violent. It was like one story. But how many countless of mass shootings have we seen by white men, which are usually white men? And they, when that happens, it's like, oh, it's a sin issue. It's a mental health issue. It's not a gun problem. And it's definitely not a white man problem. Like they completely ignore the fact, like if it's a white man, it's like, no, it's just a sin issue. We just need God in schools. But if it's literally any other group that's not a white man, then suddenly it's trans people. It's all immigrants. It's all queer people. It's all, whatever the case may be. It's people coming over the border. It's Mexicans. It's Muslims. It's all. They will never. It's so frustrating because you can't have an honest conversation. You can't have a conversation in good faith because they want their villains and they will take any opportunity that they can to further their narrative so that they can give their base villains, because if they can keep their base upset about a wrong villain, then it keeps their base from looking at the true villains, which are the billionaires that Trump is putting in his cabinet.
Yes. Let me ask you if you heard about this story, because we all know it's over the news today. This is from 2 days ago. Prosecutors say 150 pipe bombs found at Virginia man's home in what could be FBI's largest ever seizure of explosive devices. You hear about that story?
No.
No, a white man with 150 pipe bombs. Now, we're not going to hear the word terrorist. We're not going to see Ali Stuckey or Megan Basham pull this up. Oh my God, look at the problem of white men in this country. You know why we don't hear about that? Because there's an inherent bias by these people, right? They have a presupposition. Islam is a religion of war. But Christianity is a religion of goodness and peace. So we can't talk about the pastors who are molesting children because that would go against that narrative. So we'll ignore that and we'll pull up the one or two people that happen every however many years with an ISIS flag on the back of their truck, even though we don't know any details yet. And we'll just assume this guy speaks for all Muslims around the world. Or we'll ignore that prosecutors found 150 pipe bombs in a white guy's house in Virginia, right? No, instead, you know what we'll do, April? We'll talk about the gay couple that was found guilty of assaulting their children and pimping them out, and we'll tie that back to how all gay people are like that. The word we're looking for here is bigotry. That's the word, okay? And to be very clear, and you and I have been so clear about this on the show, obviously, all kinds of people, no matter their age, sex, religion, sexual orientation, race, can and will do bad things.
There are bad people in every group.
Everywhere, okay?
Yes.
There are bad pastors that exist. We do not.
And abusing children is always bad, regardless
always
of who
bad.
you are.
Always bad. Yes, the gay couple who did that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Frankly, April, even though I'm a nonviolent person, I don't believe in the death penalty. Whenever stuff happens to kids that includes that kind of stuff, a lot of my own morals go out the window. And there's a part of me that says they shouldn't be on this earth anymore. And that includes the pastors, by the way, too. But that's the difference, April, is that you and I have a hard line of anywhere a child is harmed like that, when it comes to sexual assault, there should be no dogma goes out the window. Then we just all agree. And what's so frustrating is watching your Ali Stuckeys and this whole right-wing world, right, still praise John MacArthur for being a gospel Bible-believing Christian, despite the fact that he covered for two of his own pastors on his staff who molested their own kids. Right, that's fine, but this story of the gay couple
for leaving.
Oh my God, I know. I'm like I said, I'm real ranty today. I'm sorry to be talking so much, but it's just really wild to watch this, and we have to be able to call the balls and strikes, right? Obviously. Yeah. So it's just this story of this terrorist attack is once again going to be used, right, to fuel more Islamophobia. It's going to let the right wing run with all kinds of stories, many of which aren't even factually true, led by the president-elect of the United States. And then Megan's going to say, well, listen, God's using Trump. No, Trump is he's really a big proponent of those biblical values that we all need more of in America. It's like, what? Like, math ain't mathing, bro. Like, it doesn't add up. Where's the truth? Where's the integrity? Where's the fruit of the spirit? It doesn't exist in these spaces. And it's very frustrating.
But that, it all ties together
Doesn't it?
When you value belief
Yep.
over action,
Yep.
it's why they can have a much higher percentage of child abuse in churches.
Yep.
By far. Like if you do the numbers
Yes.
and
Yes.
there's a much smaller percentage of clergy in this country than there are queer people. And there are way more cases of child abuse from clergy than there are from queer people. The percentage are not even comparable.
Yep.
You have that. But since they value belief, they will ignore what happens in the church or just say, oh, it's just a few bad apples. It's, it's just sin can get in the church too, but it's just a one-off. It's not a systemic thing. You can't paint all pastors as that because we're good people. And then you have a small, tiny percentage of that happening in queer people, which is still bad.
Of course. Obviously.
But they will take that to call every single queer person a pedophile.
Or
they
a
paint
groomer.
them all that way. Like the amount of people that have accused our family of doing that because Beecher's non-binary, like they just exist. And it's just so frustrating because they value freaking belief. It's not action. Like I would take, literally the Bible says faith without works is dead. But then they say, no, it doesn't really matter. As long as you said the prayer, he's forgiven. Yeah, sure. He abused children, whatever, but he's a pastor and we forgave him and God redeems. But
He
then
said he
all
was
queer
sorry.
people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would freaking take an atheist that lived out the teachings of Jesus and loved their neighbor and built houses and welcomed in the immigrant. Give me an atheist over a William Wolf. Any day. Any day.
There are websites, there are accounts that just track the amount of stories coming out of the church of pastors and other leaders who abuse children, who are found legally liable for assaulting children. And you're never going to see these folks cover up those stories or make it this hornet's nest of, oh my God, the systemic grooming of pastors at the hands of children at the hands of pastors. But you will see people talk about how, oh, this guy had an ISIS flag on the back of his truck, therefore all Muslims are evil and want to kill Americans. Like it's so difficult to try and rationalize what is the irrational, right? And what you said is so true. It's not about the truth. It's about the dogma and supporting the dogma. If the dogma is Christianity is a great religion, the true religion, the one that is most loving and peaceful, then we have to make sure that we pull all evidence that reinforces that while ignoring any evidence that would take away from that, especially white evangelicals, right? These are the same people who will not bring up the legacy of their own tradition of Jim Crow or lynchings or the KKK or so many other, the White Citizens Council, right? They will not bring that up, but then they will tell you with a straight face how, no, listen, we really... us Bible-believing Christians, like we're doing it right. Like our faith is true and pure and good. But man, that the black Christians and who are pro-choice, probably not true Christians. No, probably not true Christians. And the Muslims, they're all just violent. They're just violent. Like guys, does truth matter or not? Right? And I think that's why, April, you and I walked away from so much of this, because it didn't add up once you examined it an inch beneath the surface. They ignore the doctrine of discovery. They ignore so much of the colonization done at the hands of white European-centric Christians, right? Because their dogma doesn't allow them to recognize that any religion can be used for a tool for liberation or a weapon of oppression. That's not how they think. They just think we're on the good side and our enemies are on the bad side, and we're always right and they're always wrong. Therefore, we can never pick up evidence that would demonstrate otherwise. We're going to ignore church abuse. We're going to ignore church scandal. We're going to ignore violence when it's done in the name of Jesus, because those are just aberrations of the true religion. But then we're going to take aberrations of the Muslim faith, right, and we're going to paint that as the broad brush of, see, this is what it stands for. And I'm over it. I'm all done with that way of thinking.
Yeah, and every religion has bad actors, and you can find a verse to do terrible things, whether it's from the Quran or whether it's from the Bible. And you have all these people too that are like, that really are Islamophobic and say just like, oh, well, Islam's coming to America and like women, like they mistreat women. And there's definitely misogyny and there's there's stuff that goes on, but that's also not my religion. But there are people within my own faith that want to basically do what's happening in some Muslim countries and by oppressing women and do that here. Like there are versions of Christianity that are just as oppressive as what they think Islam is.
I got to pull this up, and then maybe we can wrap this up. So Riley Gaines, she's a big name in the right-wing space. She was a woman, a swimmer who competed against Leah Thomas, and she tied 5th with Leah. And then Riley, cried foul, and she's become one of the big names fighting for true women's values. She tweeted this out the other day. She said, surprised Muslim women are still allowed oxygen at this rate. Where's the outrage from feminist orgs in Western government? And she's retweeting from the AP. The Taliban orders all NGOs in Afghanistan to stop employing women or face closure. Okay. So what I said to her was, I said, first off, there's been tons of outrage over the years, but now talk about Doug Wilson and Joel Webben, who both believe in repealing the 19th Amendment and controlling how women dress, talk, and live. And the responses underneath are they're just one tweet. You really do hate Christians, don't you? Like that's the retort, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, Joel Webben is on camera saying he doesn't want his wife reading certain books. Now,
I know
if this was a Muslim man in, I don't know, Afghanistan saying this, it'd be all over these spaces. Look at this religion of oppressing women. But for Riley, by the way, Doug Wilson has spoken at Turning Point USA faith events. But for Riley Gaines, not even a thought in her head because she's a Christian. Like, the bias is so blatant. She can't even see what's happening in her own space. So instead, she has to attack another religion that isn't even close to the dominant religion in this country and look somewhere else and say, oh, how can they live like that? Meanwhile, Turning Point USA, again, Riley spoke at America Fest, last year had Jason Whitlock on the stage saying, I'll defend, life before women's suffrage any day. Like, Riley, just look in your own house. Look in your own house if you want to find a patriarchal extremists who don't think that you should be allowed to live how you want to live. It's unreal. Yeah. It's unreal. It's unreal. This is a ranty episode, April.
It is a little ranty.
First of the year. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm over. I don't have the right words. I feel like I'm just rambling, but I'm just over it, man. Like, it's so evident how these people operate, and I'm just not going to tolerate it anymore. It doesn't mean that we can't call reality and we can't say that bad people do bad things no matter who they are. For sure, of course. We're not going to try and, sane wash a man driving a truck into a crowd of people and killing 15 of them. That's horrible. It's vile. It's terrible, of course. But to then map it onto an entire religious group is just ridiculous. Just like how we would never do that by saying, well, that if that pastor assaulted a child, all pastors are groomers. No, that's not true at all. That's not factually correct. Have some integrity. Jesus, people.
Yeah. Well, and there are actually systems in place within the evangelical church that become just a safe harbor for abusers.
For sure.
That is something that can definitely be addressed.
Yes.
But yeah,
and by the way, I trust and know that many Muslim folks, including good friends of mine, are actually talking back to their own religious circles. They would disagree with what the Taliban is doing. They would speak out strongly against it. So, I feel like, April, instead of taking the speck out of our brother's eye, we should take out the log out of our own eye. And frankly, as Christians in America, we have plenty to talk about. The SBC and how they've hid abuse for decades, the IFB, how they've hid abuse for decades, Camp, what is it, Kanakuk? Is that K-A? Have you seen that? How do you pronounce it?
Kanakuk? I feel like you said it right.
Okay.
Kanakuk?
Yeah, there's all kinds of evangelical systems and structures that are set up to protect the people in charge at the expense of people below. So let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about the spec later.
Since I've deconstructed, and really the more I learned, the more I realized I don't know anything. Yeah, so I kind of have a personal rule that I try not to speak out of ignorance, or if I am, I'll specify, I don't actually know. This is my guess based on the information that I have, and I know I could be wrong, but I try not to speak on things that I am ignorant on, which is why you're not seeing me going after Muslims. Right. Because I'm not Muslim.
Right.
I have never been Muslim. The understanding that I have of Islam is from a very whitewashed Christian understanding. And so I recognize that I have biases that I probably haven't worked through yet because of that upbringing. And there are plenty of Muslim creators, I follow some, who are calling out their own people in their own faith, which is why I feel a strong, I don't know if calling's the right word, but I feel more passionate about calling out people within my own faith community, because then I'm not speaking out of ignorance. I'm speaking out of what I know. I'm speaking out of my own upbringing, my own faith, my own traditions, and I'm speaking from a place of understanding and knowledge and not out of ignorance. If I wanted to keep speaking out of ignorance, I would have stayed an evangelical.
All of this reminds me of a Bible verse. That might help us as we wrap up this first episode of the recap of 2025. 1 Corinthians 5, verses 9 through 13. This is the Apostle Paul talking. I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, not at all meaning people of this world who are immoral, or the greedy and swindlers or idolaters. In that case, you would have to leave this world. But now I am writing to you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy, an idolater or slanderer, a drunkard or swindler. Do not even eat with such a people. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked person from among you. Maybe white evangelicals, you should look at what's happening on the inside of your churches and hold the people that you bring in and hold in high esteem accountable. Maybe look at the pastors who are swindling from you, who are greedy, who are idolaters, people who may be abusing other people, aka being sexually immoral by abusing children. Maybe you should look at those people first.
Or maybe the Christian president you just elected for a second term.
Good point, April. I mean, we're no experts, but maybe you should look inside the house, because the Bible is clear, and you believe that the Bible, every word of it, is from God's mouth to your ears. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked person from among you. The Bible is clear.
The call is coming from inside house.
What a great show, April.
What a great show. Welcome to the new year, everybody. I have no idea what accent that was.
What the hell was that?
I don't know.
I love it. Well, friends.
Can I say one thing I am excited about?
Yeah, let's go.
2025.
Yeah.
Our new show.
I'm so pumped. I'm excited. I'm excited to launch it. I'm excited to think about all the fun stuff, and we're going to do more of these, which will be good. I think
more rants.
I think having 2 episodes a week will allow us to kind of spread this stuff up over the course of the week, instead of doing one massive 90-minute 2-hour-long show.
Yeah, be
I know it's a long time.
Cover more things.
Exactly. So, all right, friends. Hey, Happy New Year to all of you. On that note, we will talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. End recording.
Boom.